Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Heart of Leadership podcast. I'm Kip John, your host, and with me today is Nicole Guay. She is one of our senior executive coaches. And today on the podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to answer some of your questions, some of our viewers' questions that have come in. And we're just going to have a little bit of a conversation or a little bit of a rapid fire between us. I like to call this episode the Hot Topics episode. Because these are the kind of questions that you may not be able to ask, at work for various reasons, or, you feel shy about asking the peers and stuff like that because maybe you feel like you should know it, or it's not necessarily the safest environment or whatever. But yeah, we're going to dive into some of those questions and have a bit of a jam on it. So welcome. I'm excited to get going. Nicole, welcome. I'm excited to have you here.
Hot topics. Yes, I'm
Hot
excited.
topics.
It's gonna be good. Yes. I'm glad we're
That's
finally
awesome.
doing this on the podcast because this is basically how we have meetings and conversations anyways.
It is, yeah. We thought about recording it because quite often we'll jam a little bit on questions that come in or questions that our clients have, and that we want clarity on talking about it. And we'll talk about it with the team. And we thought, you know what, these are great to share. Let's share with everybody, and we can talk on those questions. So we picked 5 questions that we're going to dive into and go. So what do you think? Should I ask the first question and throw it out there?
Yeah, it's your podcast. You lead.
All right, deal. Okay, so let me see here. What have we got? Okay, this one's a good one, and it comes up a lot. Not said exactly this way, but the premise and the theme is comes up all the time, especially with the people that I've been working with lately. And the question is, how can I stay adaptable and resilient in the face of constant change?
Ooh.
That's our question. So, and I'll expand just a tiny bit on that. All the time change is happening and stuff like that. I've got a few clients that lately they've had some complete shifts in their department and who's responsible for what. There's been huge corporate change, and that happens all the time. And I think a lot of people are feeling, maybe it's the fact that vacation's coming or that they've been into it for a little while, but they're feeling drained and down and burnt out. And I know you are an expert on revitalization and getting your body and health and wellness all together. So I'll leave it to you first off. What do you think? How can people stay resilient in the face of constant change?
Well, I like this question a lot because I kind of feel like this is my life's mantra because my life has changed so much. And I mean, it's not just me. We all go through changes in various kinds, but I've moved country, I've moved career arenas from wellness to business and things like that. And then of course with coaching, we see this a lot too, because as we evolve as humans, our environments usually either call us to evolve or we have to move ourselves into a different environment. And so we have to cause the evolution of our environment. And so a big part of it is just confidence, right? Is working on being able to stand in your power and to be able to just know that you got it. And so one of the tools that I found very helpful for me, but I use also is when I mean, you and I, we both like to recommend journaling a lot, and we both believe in journaling. So one of the journaling exercises I like to suggest is to remind yourself of when you've been in a situation like that before and reflecting on how you did it, how you made it through, how you were successful, how you're here today, even though, and in a lot of cases, if you're really honest, you're here today because of those situations.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like the adaptability part is that it's funny because there's so many times too where like things happen and you're like, oh, I can't believe that things are changing. And it's like, well, they're always changing,
They're
right? Like
always
it's constantly changing, right? I think it's when we get back into that mindset of like, no, everything must stay the same and be good and easy. Like that's how I want it. Can this just be good and easy for a little while? And it's like,
Yep.
those happen in moments, sure, but really the whole purpose of everything is that it's changing.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of comes down to we're never really going to get it done, whatever it is. Because as soon as you get to the it, there's a new it. As soon as you get that promotion, now you've hit that income level or you've hit that rank. Then all of a sudden you're like, you get adjusted and you adapt to that level. And then that level eventually often becomes maybe mundane or maybe boring or maybe familiar. And then you start craving something different.
Yeah, it totally is. And it plays into what you're saying too, but like journaling. And I mean, you already have, like, everybody already has change that they've evolved through, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Like you said, it happens all the time. And then recognizing that and being able to write it down and articulate it puts it out there so that you can then
Yeah.
reflect back on it and say, yeah, oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay, I can do this. I
Yeah.
can handle this. And you may not have the answers exactly how you're going to handle it, but you're right. Building the confidence and knowing that you can handle it, that's a perfect first step. What else would you add on to that, though?
Well, and then it really comes down to being able to, I call it just coaching yourself, really. It's being able to, because as humans, we really like to rationalize things and we do like to focus on the drama. We've had this discussion a lot, how our human nature tendency is it's evolutionary. When we were cavemen in the boonies, we needed to watch out for the saber-toothed tigers, so paying attention to the drama was important. Nowadays, our brain still wants to focus on the negative, on the scary, and our culture does encourage that too. I mean, you just have to watch the news. How many positive situations do you really hear about on the news, right? So
Yeah.
realizing that is an issue and being able to bring your focus back to, okay, so this might be true, it might be scary, might be uncertain, it might be hard, it might even be uncomfortable. Most of the time it is uncomfortable when we're changing, but realizing that what else is also true. And so what else is also true is there's something more. Maybe if you're moving into a new income bracket, you have more money, so comes more freedom, comes, like the joys of that. There's also the negative of that too, but realizing that we can have simultaneous things happening that are complete polar opposites, and it's what we choose to focus on that kind of gives us that experience.
Yeah, totally. And when it's an interesting point, was like what you choose to focus on. Quite often, a lot of people that I've been working with and that I've worked with over the years, and it's kind of where mindfulness comes into, right? As a tool, right? But also as that kind of, that state of being, is that you have to pay attention to what's going on. You can't just let
Mm.
it wash over you all the time, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
sitting there and you're feeling the emotions, that means that thing to cause the emotions to happen, right, has already happened, right?
Hmm.
So, you know, it's like, okay, let's level set for a second. Let's pause. Let's breathe, get ourselves centered and figure out what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Like what's happening? Why am I feeling the emotions? Because that's when like that resiliency can come into place, right? Because you're like, okay, I'm in a place of, out of 1 to 10, I'm feeling a 9 anxiety.
Yeah.
Great. You've identified that at least. You know what I mean? Now let's break it
Yeah.
down and figure out what's causing the anxiety and then go from there. Right. But a lot of people
Yeah.
just like, it hits them like a wall. They feel it. They don't know what to do. They panic, and then they try to like create solves, but they're not really paying attention to what the problem was. Right.
Yeah. Totally, totally. And I love that you put emphasis on the emotion, because that would be the third thing that I would suggest flowing into is just identifying what you're feeling. Because 90% of the time, and that's not a real statistic. That's a me generalize what I see in the coaching space. It's that frequent. It's an exaggeration, but it's that frequent that a lot of the time what we're doing is we're trying to pretend like we're not feeling what we're feeling, whether
Yeah.
it's a programming thing where we don't want to appear weak or we're just not used to feeling that emotion or uncomfortable, whatever it is. A lot of times we fight those emotions and that actually makes things worse. Like when you can't sit there and be, let's call it, frustrated. You're frustrated because you're not going where you want to go, but it's not moving as fast as you want it to, or it's not moving in the way that you expect it to or would like it to. Sometimes we get the frustration that comes up. And when you don't identify that, and you don't actually let yourself say, hey, it's okay that I'm frustrated, for example, that actually can start you on a downward path into lower emotions like anger and resentment and getting even more caught up in the negativity. Whereas if you just take that moment, like you said, just take a deep breath, just take a moment, find your grounding, and identify what is actually going on in the moment, then you can actually do something with that because you have an awareness of where your foundation is in that moment. And you don't have to keep
Yeah.
digging.
Yeah, it comes up like there's a lot of people look and they listen to this stuff and they're like, okay, so what are the tools? What are the tools? How do I fix it? Like, what are the tools? Do I meditate? Do I do mindfulness? Do I journal? What are the tools? And it's like, well, slow down
Mm,
first, right? And what we're saying too is that there's so many things that are like this, but it's like gain the knowledge first,
yeah.
right? Figure out what the problem is. Like, what is the real problem that's going on? Because the tool set that is going to be like, if you're feeling out of control because of things that aren't in any of your control, right? Like there's been decisions that are made that are beyond you that you can't really do anything about. Well, that's going to be a different process to fix that than if
Mhm.
it's something like, I have too much work right now and I can't handle it, right? Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's work on some scheduling things and work on things like that. But if you haven't figured out what's causing the burnout, right? What's causing the overwhelm, right? And what is put you in a place where you need to be adaptable and you need to be resilient, then you're going to be grabbing at the wrong stuff, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, that's the tool. Take a moment, write out what's going on, get the knowledge first, and then go with the action, right?
Totally. And I like the whole reason why I like the writing it out too is because sometimes we have a tendency to blow things out of proportion. Sometimes what's actually happening isn't as bad as we're starting to make it seem. And there's maybe something else going on in our lives. Maybe even we've been called to do something that we don't feel like we're able to do, or we're uncomfortable doing, or we haven't gotten a lot of experience. So, the whole imposter syndrome aspect too, especially if you, as you get into the executive space, especially if you're new to the executive space, that's a whole different can of worms than if you're the employee that's doing the grunt work. It's very different to manage people. And so, especially as you're moving up into, we'll call them rankings, that can sometimes present us with feeling lack of confidence and insecure about our abilities, or what's happening and our ability to manage it. And sometimes that's actually what is happening. And if we just take a moment, realize that that's what's happening, you can actually see, well, no, they hired me for a reason. I have experience. I know I can figure things out, and actually be able to really look at it in a more, I guess we could call it, strategic way, as opposed to giving into the drama of the emotional state that we're in. Because it's not bad that we're having
Yeah.
those feelings, right? Like you and I talk about feelings all the time, and you and I harp with our clients about, you got to feel the feels. You got to feel the feels. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
You got to feel the feels. It actually matters.
Well, it's the premise of human-centered leadership, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not we're not we're not robots. Like, it everything that we do is governed by our emotions, right? Whether
Yeah.
we pretend that they do or they don't, that's just how it works, right? You can deny it all you want, but it comes down to your emotions. And to break that down a little bit, it's people are like, well, it's a little bit airy fairy for me and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, here's the science, right? Our subconscious mind is the big boss. It's the big
Yeah.
boss pants of everything that's going on, right? And it's governing all of the things that we do behind the scenes. And our conscious mind is really there just to justify the decisions that our subconscious already made, right?
Exactly.
And our subconscious doesn't speak in normal text, right? It doesn't even speak in language. It speaks completely in emotions, right? So which is also why it's very, very hard for us to articulate our emotions in words. Different parts of the brains, it's complicated, but it's one of those things is like, deal with the emotions first. And like you said, journaling, people resist journaling because they think it's something else. So I'll say, I'm like, just write it out. It's not about journaling, it's about getting it out onto something else so that you can have a different view of it, right? It's not jumbled up, because it's when inside you, it's inside your head, it's inside your heart, it's all inside, it's all doing this dance with the emotions, the thoughts, the logic, and everything, right? And that's a complicated dance. So if you get it out, you can step back from it and you can look at it, and then you can absorb it and then break it down from there.
Yeah, exactly. And it does help, like, when you're writing it out, to not filter as well. It's just literally just let it out. It's
100%.
just a brain dump. Just let out what needs to come out. Give it its space. Give yourself the space and the time to just brain dump and just let stuff out on paper. No punctuation, nothing. Just get it out. I think people try to structure the whole journaling, the Dear Diary side of journaling, right? And it's not when I think when you and I are talking about journaling, for the most part, it's not about that. It's literally how you said, just get it out, just get the things out on paper, because people don't realize the mind and physical connection to actually doing stuff. That's how we actually process. I mean, how many people would say that, yeah, you can learn things in theory, but then if you actually take the theory and you go apply it, that you learn it faster and you learn it better, and you start making it as an experience. And so when you're journaling and just getting that stuff out is very similar, because you start to actually learn about yourself, and you also start to learn about those emotions, that they're not so scary, they're not so airy-fairy, and they're not a big deal. It's okay to feel the negative, what we call negative emotions, because all they're doing is telling you that there's some kind of disconnect that's happening, and it's just an alert. It's like those speed bumps, or the little road bumps on the side of the highway that go, and when you ride, it's just, hey, so there's a disconnect. Stop what you're doing. Take a minute. We'll call it anxiety. You're feeling anxiety right now. Just take a minute. Breathe. Do what you need to do, and then move forwards. And it's actually good, because otherwise we just start going with blinders on with and just autopilot.
And that's when like serious mistakes can happen. So
right, exactly.